The first message from the stars arrived on a cold morning in January 2089. A deep space. Relay station orbiting Neptune picked up the signal, and within hours, it had been decoded and translated by Earth's best linguists. Commander Lisa Grant read the message 17 times before she believed what it said. The Galactic Council had been watching humanity for centuries. They had seen the first rockets leave Earth's atmosphere. They had watched humans walk on the moon. They had observed the colonies spreading across Mars and the mining operations in the asteroid belt. And now, they had decided it was time for humanity to take its place in the cosmic order. The message was polite but firm. Humanity was summoned to appear before the Council within one standard galactic year. They would be evaluated, classified, and assigned a tier within the hierarchy of civilizations. Those who cooperated would receive access to advanced technology and trade networks. Those who refused would face consequences. Lisa forwarded the message to Earth's Planetary Defense Authority and waited for instructions. The response came 3 days later, signed by every major government on the planet. It was a single word: silence. High Arbiter, Zethkal of the Varani. Dominion received the report of humanity's non-response with mild curiosity. His species had ruled the Galactic Council for 6,000 years. And in all that time, no emerging civilization had ever ignored a summons. The young species usually fell over themselves to please their betters. Eager for the scraps of technology and knowledge the Council might share, perhaps they did not understand the message, suggested his aide. A younger Varani, named Kethron. Their species is still primitive by our standards. They understood, Zethkal replied. His segmented eyes narrowed as he studied the reports from the observation probes. Their communication networks carried discussions of our message for weeks. Their governments held secret meetings. They chose not to respond. That is, unusual. It is insulting. Zethkal's voice carried a cold edge. Send another summons. Make the consequences of refusal more explicit this time. The second summons arrived 6 months later. It described in careful detail what had happened to other species who had refused Council authority. Orbital bombardments. Economic isolation. Entire civilizations reduced to ash and memory. The message was clear. Submit or be destroyed. Earth remained silent. Admiral Kevin Root stood before a gathering of military leaders from every nation on the planet. He was 63 years old, with gray hair and tired eyes that had seen too many wars. But when he spoke, his voice carried the strength of absolute conviction. They will come for us eventually, he said. Not this year, maybe not this decade. But the Council will not tolerate our defiance forever. When they come, they will bring enough firepower to crack our planet in half. General Maria Santos of the South American Federation leaned forward. And what do you propose, Admiral? We build. We build ships and weapons and defensive platforms. We mine every asteroid, harvest every resource, and turn this entire system into a fortress. When they come, we make sure they find something they did not expect. How long would such a project take? 40 years. Maybe 50. We will need to develop new technologies, train millions of workers, and keep the entire project secret from Council observation probes.
Ow.
The room fell silent. 40 years of preparation for a war that might never come, against an enemy whose true strength remained unknown. It was madness. But it was also the only chance humanity had. The vote was unanimous. Construction began within the month. Over the following years, the Council sent 15 more summons. Each one grew more threatening, more impatient, more confused by humanity's continued silence. Zethko studied the reports with growing frustration. They are building something, he told the Council Assembly. Our probes detect massive industrial activity throughout their system. Shipyards in orbit around their fourth planet. Mining operations on every moon and asteroid. They are preparing for something. Perhaps they are simply developing their infrastructure, offered Delegate Mirasol of the Crethany Consortium. Her bioluminescent skin flickered with uncertainty. Young species often experience rapid industrial growth. This is not normal growth. Their production capacity has increased by a factor of 1,000 in 40 years. No species achieves such expansion without external assistance. Then perhaps they have found allies we do not know about. Zethko dismissed the idea with a wave of his clawed hand. There are no powers in that region of space capable of providing such assistance. The humans are doing this alone, and that makes them dangerous. On Earth, Admiral Brooks had grown old watching his vision become reality. The shipyards now stretched across the solar system, hidden in the shadows of moons and within the dense debris of the asteroid belt. 12,000 warships had been completed, with more being built every day. The fleet was larger than anything the galaxy had ever seen. It was still growing. Brooks died in 2122, surrounded by officers who had dedicated their lives to his dream. His final words were a warning. Do not grow complacent. Do not assume our strength is enough. Keep building until they can never threaten us again. His successor, Admiral Patricia Kim, took his words to heart. She continued the construction program with ruthless efficiency, driving her people to work harder and faster. By 2129, when the 17th summons arrived, the human fleet numbered over 15,000 vessels. Kim read the summons in her office, aboard the orbital command station. The message was shorter than previous ones, almost curt in its tone. The council had grown tired of waiting. A correction fleet was being dispatched to remind humanity of its place in the natural order. She smiled as she set the message aside. After 40 years of silence, humanity was finally going to speak. How many ships are they sending? Asked her aide, Lieutenant Daniel Carter. The message does not say, but it will not be enough. How can you be sure? Kim turned to look out the window at the stars. Somewhere out there, a fleet was approaching with the intention of subjugating her entire species. They expected to find primitives struggling with basic space travel. They expected fear and submission, in grateful acceptance of council authority. They were going to be disappointed. Because nothing they have will be enough, she said quietly. We have spent 40 years preparing for this moment. Every sacrifice, every resource, every drop of sweat and blood has led to this. When they arrive, they will find out what humanity is capable of when we are pushed against the wall. The stars seemed to shine a little brighter as she spoke, as if the universe itself was holding its breath. The long silence was about to end, and when humanity finally spoke, the galaxy would listen. Fleet Commander Vernash stood on the bridge of his flagship and watched the stars blur as his fleet entered hyperspace. 200 warships followed behind him, the largest military force assembled by the Varani Dominion in 3 centuries. It was enough firepower to reduce a planet to rubble, enough ships to blockade an entire system, enough strength to crush any resistance the humans might offer. He felt confident in his mission. The humans were primitive, barely capable of interstellar travel. Their refusal to answer the council's summons was born of ignorance, not strength. They simply did not understand what they were dealing with. His job was to educate them. The journey will take 18 months at maximum speed, reported his navigation officer. Shall the first set the course for the primary planet? Set course for the outer system first, Vernash replied. We will approach slowly, giving them time to see our strength. Fear is a better teacher than weapons. The fleet moved through hyperspace like a predator stalking its prey. Vernash spent the journey studying everything the council knew about humanity. Their history was violent, filled with wars and conflicts that had killed millions. They were aggressive, territorial, and fiercely independent. Every observation suggested they would not surrender easily, but in the end, they would surrender. They had no choice. On Earth, Admiral Patricia Kim received word of the approaching fleet from long-range sensors, planted throughout the outer solar system. She studied the data carefully, counting ships and analyzing their formation. 200 vessels, she said to her command staff. Standard Varani battle configuration. Heavy cruisers in the center, destroyers on the flanks, support ships in the rear. Our fleet is ready to engage, reported Vice Admiral Stephen Park. Shall I give the order to intercept? Not yet. Let them come deeper into the system. I want them to see what they are facing before they have a chance to retreat. The human fleet was dispersed throughout the solar system, hidden in locations carefully chosen over decades of preparation. Ships lurked in the shadow of Jupiter's moons behind the rings of Saturn, within the dense asteroid belt between Mars and the outer planets. From the outside, the system appeared almost empty. Vernash noticed this as his fleet approached. His tactical officer, Kethron, presented scan after scan showing minimal human presence. "They have a few stations in orbit around their homeworld," Kethron reported. "Some mining operations in the asteroid belt, a handful of patrol vessels. Nothing that poses a threat to our fleet," as expected, Vernash said with satisfaction. "They spent 40 years building mining equipment instead of weapons. Typical primitive behavior. Commander, there are some anomalies in the scan data." "What kind of anomalies?" Kethron hesitated. Large metallic signatures hidden behind several moons. They could be asteroids, or they could be ships using the moons for concealment. "How many signatures?" "Thousands, Commander." "But that cannot be correct. The humans could not have built thousands of ships without us knowing." Vernash waved away the concern. "Your sensors are malfunctioning. No species builds thousands of warships in secret. Proceed with the mission." The Varani fleet entered the inner solar system with weapons powered and shields raised. They expected resistance, perhaps a desperate attack from whatever primitive vessels the humans had managed to assemble. What they found was emptiness. No ships rose to challenge them. No weapons fired from hidden platforms. The humans seemed to have simply accepted their fate. Then Admiral Kim gave the order. Ships began to emerge from concealment across the entire solar system. They rose from behind moons and out of asteroid fields and from the shadows of gas giants. Dreadnoughts the size of small mountains led the way, followed by carriers launching swarms of smaller craft. Destroyers and frigates moved in perfect formation, their weapons already locked onto the Varani fleet. Vernash watched his tactical display with growing horror. The number of enemy ships kept climbing. 1,000, 5,000, 10,000, 15,000. The human fleet surrounded his force on all sides, an ocean of metal and fury that stretched across millions of kilometers. "This is impossible," he whispered. "This is completely impossible." His communications officer looked up with fear in her eyes. "Commander, we are receiving a transmission from the human flagship. Put it through." Admiral Kim's face appeared on the main screen. She was older than Vernash had expected, with gray hair and sharp eyes that showed no fear. When she spoke, her voice was calm and measured. "Fleet Commander Vernash, I am Admiral Patricia Kim of the United Earth Defense Force. You have entered our sovereign territory with hostile intent. You will power down your weapons and surrender your vessels immediately." Vernash struggled to find his voice. "You cannot possibly expect us to surrender. The Galactic Council will send more ships. 1,000 ships. 10,000. However many it takes." "I am counting on it," Kim replied. "But today you are facing 15,000 human warships. Your fleet is outnumbered 75 to 1. You have no hope of victory, no chance of escape, and no possibility of reinforcement. Surrender is your only option." The Varani bridge crew looked to their commander with desperate eyes. They had come to subjugate primitives and found themselves trapped by giants. Every instinct screamed at Vernash to fight, to die with honor rather than accept such humiliation. But he was responsible for the lives of every being in his fleet. Pride was not worth their deaths. "Stand down," he ordered quietly. "Power down weapons and raise surrender flags. Commander, do it. We cannot win this fight." The Varani fleet went dark, their weapons falling silent one by one. Human ships moved in to take control, their crews professional and efficient. Within hours, every Varani vessel had been secured, and every crew member taken into custody. Admiral Kim watched the operation from her command center with grim satisfaction. The first battle of humanity's war for independence had been won without a single shot fired. But she knew this was only the beginning. "Send word to Earth," she ordered. "Tell them the correction fleet has been corrected, and begin preparations for the next phase." "The next phase, Admiral?" Kim turned to face her officers with fire in her eyes. "They sent 200 ships to conquer us. When they learn what happened here, They will send everything they have. We need to be ready." The stars outside seemed to grow brighter as she spoke, as if celebrating humanity's first victory. But the war was far from over. The Council would respond to this humiliation with overwhelming force, and humanity would be waiting. Fleet. Commander Vernash had expected brutality. Every story he had ever heard about primitive species described them as cruel and vengeful, quick to torture their enemies for information or simple entertainment. He had prepared himself for pain during the long shuttle ride to the human detention facility. Instead, he found himself in a comfortable room with soft lighting and a bed that adjusted to support his segmented body. A human doctor examined him gently, checking for injuries and offering medicine for the stress of capture. Guards brought food that had been carefully prepared to match Varani dietary requirements. It was the kindest imprisonment Vernash had ever heard of. Captain Nicole Harper came to see him on the third day. She was a small woman with dark hair and patient eyes, the kind of person who seemed to listen more than she spoke. She carried a tablet and a cup of something that steamed in the recycled air. "Fleet Commander," she said as she sat across from him. "I hope you have been treated well." "Better than I expected," Vernash admitted. "Your people are not what I thought they would be. We hear that a lot." Harper smiled slightly. "The galaxy seems to have certain ideas about humanity. Most of them are wrong. You built 15,000 warships in secret. You captured my entire fleet without firing a single shot. The galaxy had no idea you were capable of such things." That was rather the point. Vernash leaned forward, his segmented eyes studying the human carefully. "Why did you ignore the summons? For 40 years you said nothing. You let the Council believe you were primitives. You let us underestimate you." Harper set her tablet aside and met his gaze directly. "Because we learned from watching others? The Council has a pattern, Commander. They find a young species, they send summons, and they demand submission. Those who cooperate are absorbed into the hierarchy. Those who resist are destroyed. We decided we wanted neither option. So you chose to build an army instead, chose to give ourselves a choice. The Council wanted to evaluate us and assign us a tier. We decided that humanity would not be classified by anyone." The concept seemed alien to Vernash. His entire civilization was built on hierarchy, on knowing one's place in the natural order. The idea of rejecting that order entirely was almost impossible to understand. "The Council will not accept this," he said. "They will send a larger fleet. They will burn your worlds and scatter your people across the void. Let them try." Harper's voice carried no anger, only quiet confidence. "We spent 40 years preparing for exactly that scenario. Every ship they send is a ship we planned for. Every weapon they use is a weapon we studied. We are not afraid of the Council, Commander. We are ready for them." On Earth, the news of the victory spread quickly. Cities erupted in celebration as people learned that the feared correction fleet had been captured without a single human casualty. Parades filled the streets. Politicians gave speeches praising the courage and dedication of the Defense Force. But Admiral Kim did not celebrate. She sat in her office reviewing intelligence reports, studying everything the captured Varani could tell them about Council military capabilities. "They can mobilize 50,000 ships within 2 years, reported Vice Admiral Park as he entered her office. "Maybe more if they pull forces from the frontier regions." 50,000, Kim rubbed her tired eyes. "We have 15,000, with another 5,000 under construction. The numbers are not in our favor. We could build more. Expand the shipyards, accelerate production, there is no time. The Council will respond to this humiliation quickly. They cannot afford to look weak in front of the other species." Kim turned to face her window, staring out at the stars. "We need to strike first." "Strike where?" "The Council itself. We take their seat of power and force them to negotiate." Park was silent for a long moment. "That would require sending our fleet across half the galaxy. We would be leaving Earth undefended. Earth was never the prize, Stephen. The Council does not want our planet. They want our submission. If we can force them to accept our independence, the planet will be safe forever." The plan was bold, perhaps even foolish. But Admiral Kim had spent her entire career preparing for this moment. She had studied the Council's weaknesses, their pride, and their fear of appearing weak. She knew exactly how to hurt them. Back in the detention facility, Captain Harper continued her conversations with Vernash. She was not interrogating him exactly. She was learning, gathering information about the galaxy that humanity would soon be entering as an equal power. "What will happen to us?" Vernash asked one evening. "My crew and I, will we be executed?" "No," Harper said simply. "When negotiations are complete, you will be returned to your people. We have no interest in killing prisoners. That is not how things are usually done. Humanity does many things differently, Commander. Perhaps that is why we are still here." Vernash considered her words carefully. In his experience, kindness was weakness. Mercy was a vulnerability that enemies would exploit. But the humans had shown him kindness and mercy. And yet they had also built a fleet that could challenge the entire Council. Perhaps strength and compassion were not as incompatible as he had always believed. "You're Admiral Kim," he said slowly. "What kind of person is she?" Harper smiled. "The kind of person who spent 40 years building something impossible because she believed her people deserved a chance. The kind of person who would rather negotiate than destroy, but who will destroy without hesitation if negotiation fails. She sounds dangerous." "She is, but not in the way you think. She is dangerous because she cares. She cares about humanity's future, about every life under her command, about the kind of galaxy we will leave for our children. That caring makes her patient and careful and absolutely unstoppable." Vernash nodded slowly. He had served many commanders in his long career, but he had never served one who cared about anything beyond victory and glory. The concept was strange to him, but he was beginning to understand its power. Humanity was not just strong. They were motivated by something deeper than conquest or dominance. They were fighting for their right to exist on their own terms, and that, Vernash realized, made them the most dangerous species in the galaxy. The Galactic. Out! Council had ruled from Centrum Prime for 11,000 years. The artificial world floated in a carefully maintained orbit around a dying star, its surface covered with monuments to cooperation and peace. Every species that had ever joined the Council had contributed something to its construction, creating a planet-sized symbol of galactic unity. High Arbiter Zethkale had never felt less unified in his life. The news from the Sol system had spread through the galaxy like fire. 200 Varani warships captured without a single shot fired. An entire correction fleet humiliated by primitives who were supposed to kneel and beg for mercy. The other species on the Council were demanding explanations, and Zethkal had none to give. "How did this happen?" demanded Delegate Mirasol of the Crethany Consortium. Her bioluminescent skin flashed with angry red patterns. "You assured us the humans were primitive. You said the correction fleet would be more than sufficient." "The intelligence was wrong," Zethkal admitted through clenched teeth. "The humans hid their true capabilities. They built thousands of warships in secret, right under our observation probes. Thousands. Our reports say 15,000. That is more than most Council species possess. The reports are accurate." The Council chamber fell into shocked silence. 15,000 warships was not just impressive for a young species. It was impressive for any species. The Varani Dominion, the most powerful military force in the galaxy, could only field 50,000 vessels at full mobilization. "We must respond with overwhelming force," Zethkal declared. "I propose we assemble a combined fleet from all Council species. 100,000 ships should be sufficient to crush their resistance. And if it is not," asked an elderly delegate from the Threenix Collective, "if they have hidden other capabilities, other weapons we do not know about, then we will send more, however many it takes." The debate continued for hours, with some delegates urging caution and others demanding immediate retaliation. But before any decision could be reached, alarms began to sound throughout the chamber. "Multiple hyperspace signatures detected," announced the security officer. "Thousands of ships approaching Centrum Prime." Zethkal felt his blood turn cold. Identification? Human, High Arbiter. The signatures matched the vessels from Sol System. They had come. The humans had actually come to the heart of Council space, to the most protected world in the galaxy. It was madness. It was suicide. And yet, as the human fleet dropped out of hyperspace, Zethkel realized it might be neither. 8,000 dreadnoughts formed the core of the human formation, each one larger than anything in the Council's defensive fleet. Carriers launched clouds of smaller craft that spread across the void like swarms of angry insects. Destroyers and frigates took position on the flanks, their weapons already powered and ready. At the center of it all hung the human flagship, a vessel so massive it seemed to bend the light around it. The name painted on its hull was visible even from millions of kilometers away. Constellation. Admiral Patricia Kim appeared on every screen in the council chamber. Her face was calm, her voice steady, as if she were discussing trade agreements rather than threatening the seat of galactic power. Members of the Galactic Council, she began. For 40 years, you sent summons demanding humanity's submission. For 40 years, we chose silence. Today we have decided to speak. Zethkel found his voice. You have brought war to our doorstep, Admiral. This is an act of aggression that will not be forgiven. I have brought a conversation to your doorstep, Kim corrected. One that is long overdue. You sent fleets to threaten us. You demanded we kneel before your hierarchy. You treated us like children to be disciplined. We are here to explain, in terms you cannot misunderstand, that those days are over. Council will not negotiate under threat of force. Then you leave us no choice but to demonstrate that force. Kim's eyes hardened. Your defensive fleet numbers 300 vessels. We have brought 8,000. Your orbital platforms mount weapons that were outdated before my grandmother was born. Our ships carry technology you have never seen. This is not a battle you can win, High Arbiter. It is not even a battle you can survive. The council chamber erupted in panicked conversation. Delegates shouted at each other, demanding action or surrender or anything that might save them from the human guns pointed at their world. Zethkel raised his hand for silence. When the noise died down, he spoke directly to the human admiral. What do you want? Recognition, Kim replied. Humanity will be acknowledged as an independent power, equal in standing to any member of the council. We will not be classified, evaluated, or assigned a tier. We will not submit to council authority or jurisdiction. We will chart our own course among the stars. And if we refuse, then we will leave your defensive fleet as debris and your monuments as rubble. Your choice, High Arbiter. The threat hung in the air like poison. 11,000 years of history. 11,000 years of carefully maintained order. Reduced to a simple ultimatum, accept human independence or watch everything burn. Delegate Mirasol spoke into the silence. Perhaps we should listen to what they propose. A conversation, as the Admiral said, seems preferable to destruction. Other delegates murmured agreement. The fear of human weapons was overwhelming the pride of ancient civilizations. One by one, they turned to Zethkel, waiting for his decision. He had never felt so old, so tired, so completely outmaneuvered. The humans had not just built a fleet, they had built a moment, a perfect intersection of strength and timing that left him with no good options. We will negotiate, he said finally. But I want assurances that your fleet will not attack while talks are underway. Agreed, Kim said. As long as negotiations proceed in good faith, not a single shot will be fired. But if we detect any attempt to mobilize reinforcements or prepare a counterattack, we will interpret that as a breakdown in talks, and we will respond accordingly. The council had no choice but to accept. The strongest civilizations in the galaxy sat down to negotiate with primitives who had refused to kneel. And for the first time in 11,000 years, the hierarchy that governed the stars began to crack. Humanity had arrived at the seat of galactic power, not as supplicants seeking approval, but as equals demanding recognition. The old order was dying. Something new was about to be born. The negotiations lasted 6 months. Ambassador Christopher Lane led the human delegation from a secure facility aboard the Constellation, refusing to set foot on council territory until formal agreements were reached. He was a patient man, trained in diplomacy across 3 decades, and he understood that rushing these talks would only lead to problems later. The council delegates found him frustrating. He would not be bribed or threatened or charmed into making concessions. Every point was debated, every word examined, every agreement built on foundations that could not be easily broken. The first principle is non-negotiable, Lane explained during one session. Humanity recognizes no authority above its own sovereign government. We will not submit to council jurisdiction, council taxation, or council military integration. Ever. Arbiter Zethkal leaned back in his seat with an expression of disgust. Then what relationship do you propose? If you reject our authority, how can we coexist? Partnership, trade, cultural exchange, scientific cooperation. All the benefits of galactic civilization, without the submission your hierarchy demands? The hierarchy exists for a reason, Ambassador. It maintains order. It prevents conflicts between species. Without it, chaos would consume the galaxy. Lane smiled slightly. With respect, High Arbiter, the hierarchy exists to benefit those at the top. Order is maintained through fear, not cooperation. We are offering a different model. A model where primitives can ignore their betters whenever they choose. A model where every species chooses their own path. Where membership in your council is voluntary, not enforced at gunpoint. Where young civilizations have the right to develop on their own terms. The debate continued for weeks. Zethko fought every concession, trying to preserve as much of the old order as possible. But the human fleet remained in orbit around Centrum Prime. A constant reminder of what would happen if negotiations failed. Admiral Kim spent most of those months in her quarters, reviewing reports and preparing contingency plans. She did not trust the council to negotiate honestly, and she wanted to be ready for any betrayal. Captain Nicole Harper visited her one evening with news from the detention facilities and Sol System. The Varani prisoners had been surprisingly cooperative, providing information about council military deployments and political divisions. Fleet Commander Vernash asked me to deliver a message, Harper said. He wants to speak with you directly. Kim raised an eyebrow. The commander of the fleet we captured wants to talk to me? What about? He would not say, but he has been helpful during his detention. I think he respects what we have accomplished. Kim considered for a moment, then nodded. Arrange a video conference. I am curious what he has to say. Vernash appeared on her screen an hour later, looking older and wearier than his official portraits. Captivity had given him time to think, and thinking had changed him in ways he did not fully understand. Admiral Kim, he began. I wanted to thank you for the treatment my crew has received. It was not what we expected. We are not monsters, Commander. Despite what your council believes, I know that now. Vernash paused, choosing his next words carefully. I also wanted to offer you a warning. The council will sign whatever agreement your ambassador demands. They have no choice. But they will not honor it for long. We are aware of that possibility. It is not a possibility. It is a certainty. The Varani Dominion has spent 6,000 years at the top of the hierarchy. They will not accept being challenged by a species they considered primitive. The moment your fleet leaves Centrum Prime, they will begin planning their revenge. Kim nodded slowly. What do you suggest? Keep building. Keep watching. And never, ever trust them to keep their word. The warning stayed with Kim as the negotiations entered their final stages. Ambassador Lane had secured almost everything humanity wanted: full independence, trading rights, diplomatic recognition, and a new principle enshrined in galactic law. No species could be compelled to join the council or submit to its hierarchy. Membership would be voluntary. The signing ceremony took place in the Great Hall of the Council Chamber, surrounded by monuments to 11,000 years of galactic history. Representatives from every council species watched as Zethkal pressed his seal to the document, officially acknowledging humanity as an equal power. Lane signed for humanity, his signature steady and clear. When he finished, he turned to face the assembled delegates. This treaty marks the beginning of a new era, he said. An era where different species can coexist without one trying to dominate the other. Where strength is measured not by the ability to conquer, but by the willingness to cooperate. Humanity looks forward to building that future together with you. The words were polite, diplomatic, exactly what the moment required, but everyone in the room understood the truth behind them. Humanity had won not through negotiation, but through strength. The council had agreed to these terms because they had no choice. Admiral Kim watched the ceremony from the Constellation's bridge. When it was over, she gave the order to withdraw. The human fleet turned as one and began the long journey home, leaving behind a changed galaxy. On Earth, the news of the treaty sparked celebrations that lasted for days. Humanity had done what no species in galactic history had managed. They had forced the Council to treat them as equals, earning through 40 years of silent preparation what others had failed to achieve through centuries of cooperation. Kim returned to a hero's welcome, though she seemed uncomfortable with the attention. At her final press conference before retirement, a reporter asked what message she hoped humanity's achievement would send to the galaxy. She thought for a long moment before answering. That silence is not weakness, that patience is not surrender, and that when humanity finally speaks, the stars themselves will listen. She walked away from the podium and never gave another public statement, but her legacy lived on in the fleet that continued to grow, in the treaties that protected human independence, and in the knowledge that Earth would never bow to anyone again. The Council had sent 17 summons, demanding humanity's submission. Humanity had answered every single one, just not in the way anyone expected, somewhere in the vastness of space. The Constellation made its slow journey home, its mission complete. Behind it, the old order was crumbling. Ahead, a new future was being born, and humanity was finally ready to meet it.